Today, the folks over at Valve decided to release an update that we kind of knew was coming because they had teased it over the weekend for Dota Underlords, and this is a balance patch. There are a number of changes that they are making to make things a little bit more in line or competitive, and they're trying to end the reign of hunters. Not necessarily end, but at least make them not the clear overall best choice every time in Dota Underlords. So I was going to go through the balance patch and kind of talk about the changes, maybe make some predictions about what you might see as a result of these, but really just kind of highlight, what is happening to hunters, because prior to this, it was hunters, 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 and for good reason. So first up in the balance update here, we have Drow Ranger. Precision Aura now gives plus 10, plus 20, plus 30 attack speed to allies and a 1-cell radius. This is certainly a nerf, and it is targeting Drow specifically because she was just bonkers good in this game. She did everything that you wanted on a hero that did damage and then some, and it's kind of funny because somebody like myself who played an awful lot of Artifact, I remember when Drow was a problem there and had to be adjusted, and now here in Underlords, Drow meets the same fate. Next up, Hunter Alliance has a change where chance to trigger the extra attack is increased from 15 and 25% to 20 and 35. So this is a buff. However, this is a buff to offset the next part, which is another nerf. And that's the second part of Hunter Alliance, which is reduced extra attacks from 2 to 1. What that means is that before, if you had the Hunter Alliance, you could basically trigger where you would fire 3 quick attacks. So your first attack and then 2 bonus attacks. Now it's down to just 1, so you'll still get a bonus attack, but it's just, fire, fire instead of fire, fire, fire. That's actually a pretty big deal. Now, even though you have a higher percent chance of triggering it, the reason that's a big deal is because there were a number of items in the game that gave you really cool effects, potentially, stuns or extra chances to crit, so on and so forth, and you could really abuse it more so on hunters than any other of the damage dealers in the game, because you would get the attack speed from Drow, who was, again, just crazy good, and then you would also get all these chances to trigger bonus attacks, and so you were essentially just kind of mowing everything down. You'd have chances to proc bonus damage in the form of lightning, and like I said, stuns and crits and everything. And then if you threw in somebody like Medusa, who's got like the spread shot, it was a bad time for anybody not on hunters, and this is aimed at trying to reel that in. Now, if I'm being entirely honest, when I look at these changes, I think hunters are still viable. They're just not the clear-cut #1 best choice above everything else anymore. So I don't think that you should feel bad about, choosing hunters after this patch. You just won't get like insane, wildly unbalanced results. But I think this is good. The next change, and this is probably due to community feedback, BKB, aka Black King Bar, used to just make your hero magic immune, just period. Now it grants magic immune for 7 seconds once the first enemy has 100% mana. Now, if you're not familiar with how the units cast their spells, essentially, how it works in Dota Underlords, units that have mana, when they hit 100%, they use their 1 activated ability. So, basically, the first time somebody has the opportunity to use an ability, the person wearing Black King Bar becomes immune. Now, this is interesting because you could have your character become immune, but if they weren't the target of the ability, then this essentially did nothing anyway. And then once the 7 seconds are up, because this is a once per battle trigger, that character becomes vulnerable again. So this is certainly a nerf. I think that the item is still solid, but it's not like amazing. I think this is largely because there were a number of people who were saying that like there's no reason to go mages ever because people will just take Black King Bar and then your most powerful units will do nothing against them. There's some truth to that. I think that might have been a little bit of an over-exaggeration in some instances. I don't think that mages were unplayable before, but this certainly helps. And then there's another part of the balance patch down towards the end that I'll talk about that I think also helps mages a bit. So Black King Bar, it gets a bit of a nerf. A couple of the knights get buffs because knights have been feeling kind of weak. Omni Knight has the heal from purification increased. Instead of 2, 3, and 400, it's now 2, 4, and 600. I mean, that's a pretty big jump. Certainly helps your team out. Abaddon similarly has the aphotic shield absorption and damage increased from 150, and 200 to 100, 300, 500. I think that Abaddon is the bigger winner of the two here, just because the aphotic shield absorbs damage, but then also deals damage, and that's a hefty amount at the later levels. So if you can get, to 2-star or 3-star Abaddon, that's pretty solid. Again, Omni Knight's bonus is helpful. Now, I do want to say that I'm not sure that this is enough to really help Knights out as an archetype, though, simply because the changes that were made to Knights. So Knights in Dota Underlords no longer have the random chance to proc. They just have a flat damage resistance to like all sources if they're within one cell of another knight. And that positioning is really hard to rely on. If you're not like stacking knights, if you only have like the 2 knight bonus, and honestly even with 4 knights, there's a strong chance that the AI will just make them not be near each other anymore. And smart opponents, if they know that they're running into a knight squad repeatedly, or you're starting to get towards the end game, can split their squad up, right? You don't have to space everything so grouped together. You can spread out your squad if you're against knights, force the knights to separate when they're on the front line, and then they lose their bonus. So the fact that it's position based is really cool. I think that flavor wise and thematically it makes sense. I like it. I like that it's not just tied to random chance anymore. However, that also means that it's pretty easy to exploit and it's easier to play around as well. So knights get a little bit of a buff in the form of Omni Knight and Abaddon, but whether or not that's enough to carry knights as a build choice, I'm a bit skeptical. Ogre Magi gets a Bloodlust self buff increased from 30, 50, 70 to 35, 55, 75. That's a very minor tweak. If you were gung-ho about Ogre Magi before, you're probably not going to notice a ton there. Just a general balance update. Critical hits can no longer miss. I think that probably matters most for like the evasion elusive units. Assassins are now untargetable for 1 frame when landing after a jump. And I think this is an okay quality of life thing. It's an obvious like minor buff to assassins, but the reality is it probably should have been like this to begin with. There's nothing that feels worse than like having your assassin, leap or teleport to a target, and then before the animation's like even finished, it just gets nuked and it doesn't even get to get 1 attack off. Like the whole point of an assassin is like, surprise, I backstabbed you, and instead they were going surprise, and then they were dead. So I think this makes sense. I think it's a good change. And then the last part here is kind of vague, but I feel like I know what it's getting at. Maybe I'm wrong. This is, I will admit, speculation, but loot round drops have been adjusted to give more consistent rewards. Now, in my opinion, the loot rounds in Dota Underlords are a great addition to the genre, but it really felt like the Wild West in these first few days of the game. So much so that I was seeing people getting the same items just over and over and over, and I'm not against that, but it was happening pretty frequently. I felt like something was off. I was playing some games with Sunsfan, for example, and he got like 3 unstable reactors, and immediately he was already building the scrappy inventor. I'm trying to use the new terminology. I want to say goblin mech so bad. Scrappy inventor, he was already building it, and just randomly ran into 3 unstable reactors. But that's not the only time that's happened. There's been a lot of times where I've just, for whatever reason, seen people with the same items just over and over and over. And I think that goes back to the BKB, the Black King Bar issue, which is in a vacuum, that old version of Black King Bar I don't think was that bad, but if people got 2 or 3 of them, then yeah, absolutely, mages got nullified. You are not going anywhere as a mage. So hopefully the loot round drops being tweaked a bit, and the change to BKB means mages will have a bit of a chance to shine. So what do I think that the end result of this is going to be? I still think hunters will see play, because with the addition of the items to this game, they're still really good. Like, even after these nerfs, I think they're entirely viable. Specifically because, so if you're coming from auto chess, the items that you got in auto chess were like random. Sometimes you could go through wave after wave of NPC, you kill the AI, and you don't even get items dropping. The fact that you always get items dropping in Dota Underlords on specified rounds, and if you're winning those rounds, and let's be honest, the AI is a bit undertuned, so you're for sure winning them, you're given choices, right? So you're getting a choice of the item that you're selecting, and you're guaranteed to get items. This makes the heroes that have like attack speed and these on-trigger effects that much more powerful, that much more potent, because you can pick items and then abuse them with the triggers. So hunters were just crazy next level good before. I think they're still going to be viable now. You'll still see people running it despite the changes. I think that with BKB being adjusted, people will be less afraid to try out mages. I think mages were already pretty strong before, but I think that you're going to see a bit of a resurgence there. First couple of days, people might try knights before figuring out that the issue is, in my opinion, still with the way the alliance works with the positioning, which, again, don't get me wrong, I love thematically from a flavor standpoint. I just think that overall that's going to be the weakness of that particular alliance. So I think that the winners are probably Assassin, because of the frame adjustment. That's technically a buff. With the power level coming down on hunters, they might not nuke your assassins as fast, so you might be able to get in there. So I think assassins will have a bit of a chance to shine. Mages will kind of come out of obscurity, and I think that if you are not worried about being nuked into oblivion by insane hunters going forward, again, I think they're still viable, but with that out of the way, I also think that focusing on strong crowd control squads could be very, very viable. A lot of really good CC options, specifically once you start getting to like the tier 4 and the tier 5 units, I think are going to swing games. So we will see, but right now, I like the balance changes. I think that it's a step in the right direction. I like that they did it so quickly. Hopefully, we'll continue to get, quick adjustments here during this beta period as they try to nail things down. I'm really enjoying the game so far. Looking forward to seeing, what they do with it, what other features are coming. But that's it for this particular patch. If you're playing the game, let me know what you think about the balance changes. If you're not playing the game, you should be. I did a ultra basics video along with the gameplay example, so if you're not sure or you don't even know what this game is and you stumbled into this video, hello, thank you for watching. You can check that out, but otherwise, if you've made it this far, I appreciate it. Thank you, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video.